In the vast, open spaces of the Canterbury Plains, a truly unique and gentle soul resided. This was not just any horse. His name was Pogo, and he was special in his own quiet way. Pogo did not run with the other horses or seek their boisterous company. Instead, he found his peace in solitude, a calm figure against the sprawling green canvas of his home. He moved with a gentle rhythm, his steps measured and thoughtful, as if he were listening to a song only he could hear. His coat, a lovely shade of chestnut brown, shone beautifully in the morning sun, and his eyes held a deep reflective quality, observing the world around him with a serene curiosity that set him apart from all others. Pogo's world was a quiet one, filled with simple joys that others might overlook. He loved the feeling of the cool morning breeze as it rustled through his mane and the taste of sweet, dewy grass at dawn. He would stand for hours near a cluster of old willow trees, their long, sweeping branches offering him shade and a sense of protection. Observers might have called him shy or even aloof, but those who watched him closely understood that he simply experienced the world differently. He was a creature of habit and found immense comfort in his routines, a silent testament to the fact that connection and happiness can be found not just in a herd, but within oneself and the quiet corners of nature. His nature was often described as being like that of an autistic individual. He processed sensations with a heightened sensitivity. Loud noises could startle him, and sudden movements could make him anxious. Because of this, he carved out a life that was predictable and calm. He knew every dip and rise of his favourite pasture, every scent that drifted on the wind, from the earthy smell of damp soil after a rain to the sweet fragrance of wildflowers blooming in the spring. This deep connection to his environment was his way of navigating a world that could sometimes feel overwhelming, and it gave him a profound sense of security and belonging in his own special way. This gentle horse, living his life on his own terms, was a remarkable sight. He was a symbol of how every creature, no matter how different, finds its own way to thrive. Pogo's story is not one of grand adventures or daring feats, but of quiet strength and the beauty of a life lived in harmony with one's own nature. He didn't need the validation of a large group. His contentment came from the gentle rhythms of the plains and the trusted companionship of a few unlikely friends. His quiet existence was a peaceful kingdom, built on a foundation of tranquility and trust, soon to be tested in the most dramatic way imaginable. Pogo was not entirely alone in his tranquil world. He shared his days with a flock of geese, a lively and chattering group that had, over time, become his most trusted companions. This friendship was a curious and wonderful thing to witness. The geese, with their loud honks and bustling energy, might have seemed like an odd match for the quiet horse. Yet they had formed an extraordinary bond. They did not seem to mind his silent nature. In fact, they appeared to respect it. They would waddle around him as he grazed, their white and grey feathers a stark contrast to his rich brown coat, creating a beautiful and harmonious scene on the green plains. Their days followed a comfortable and predictable pattern, one that brought immense comfort to Pogo. In the morning, as the sun began to warm the earth, the geese would gather around him. They would often accompany him to his favourite watering hole, their watchful eyes scanning the surroundings as he drank. They communicated in their own unique way, a language of soft nudges from Pogo and gentle honks from the geese. It was a partnership built on mutual respect and a shared sense of peace. The geese seemed to understand his need for space, never crowding him but always remaining close enough to offer their reassuring presence, a constant, feathered guard of honour. This arrangement provided a wonderful sense of security for everyone. For Pogo, the constant low chatter of the geese was a comforting sound, a familiar backdrop to his quiet life that let him know all was well. For the geese, the towering, gentle presence of the large horse offered protection from smaller predators that might lurk in the tall grasses. Together they were a family, unconventional but deeply connected. They would spend entire afternoons together, with Pogo dozing in the sun while the geese preened their feathers or foraged for tasty roots and insects nearby, their lives interwoven in a tapestry of simple shared moments. This peaceful kingdom, built on the unlikely friendship between a solitary horse and a flock of geese, was a sanctuary. It was a place where differences were not just accepted but celebrated. The calm of the horse balanced the energy of the birds, and their watchfulness protected his gentle spirit. It was a perfect, harmonious existence, a bubble of tranquility floating on the vast Canterbury plains. But nature, in all its beauty, also holds an element of raw, untamed danger. And on this ordinary day, the peaceful bubble that Pogo and his friends had so carefully constructed was about to be shattered by an unwelcome and terrifying intruder. The day began like any other. The sun cast long, golden rays across the plains, and a gentle breeze whispered through the tall grass. Pogo was grazing peacefully in his favourite meadow, the familiar, comforting sounds of his goose companions filling the air around him. The birds were busily searching for seeds and insects, their happy honks a constant, reassuring hum. Pogo felt completely at ease, his powerful body relaxed as he enjoyed the morning meal. The world was exactly as it should be, safe and predictable. He had no reason to suspect that danger was silently approaching, a creeping shadow hidden from view. Unseen by the horse or his feathered friends, a formidable predator was moving through the dense undergrowth. It was a giant python, a creature of immense size and power, its patterned skin providing the perfect camouflage against the dappled light and shadows of the grasslands. The snake moved with a silent, deadly precision, its body gliding effortlessly over the earth. It was driven by instinct, by a primal hunger that had led it to this peaceful corner of the plains. Its unblinking eyes were fixed on the large, warm-blooded animal grazing just a few meters away, a target that promised a substantial meal. The python was a master of ambush. It did not rush. It waited, patient and motionless, for the perfect moment to strike. Pogo, lost in his serene world, remained completely unaware of the peril that was drawing nearer with every passing second. The geese, too, were preoccupied with their foraging, their attention focused on the ground at their feet. The air was still thick with peace, but it was a fragile peace, unknowingly on the verge of being torn apart. The snake's presence was an invisible threat, a dark secret held within the rustling blades of grass, waiting to be revealed in a terrifying explosion of motion. As Pogo took a step closer to a particularly lush patch of clover, he unknowingly crossed an invisible threshold. This was the moment the python had been waiting for. The predator's muscles tensed, its body coiling like a powerful spring, preparing to launch its devastating attack. The peaceful scene of the horse and geese was about to transform into a desperate struggle for survival. The shadow in the grass was no longer just a shadow. It was a coiled, living weapon, and its target was the unsuspecting, gentle horse who had known nothing but peace in his protected world. The silence was about to be broken by a cry of pure terror. In a sudden, terrifying blur of motion, the python struck. It launched itself from the cover of the tall grass with incredible speed and force, its massive body a bolt of living muscle. Before Pogo could even process what was happening, the snake had latched onto his leg. A sharp, searing pain shot through him, followed immediately by an overwhelming sense of shock and confusion. The serene morning was shattered. The gentle horse, who flinched at loud noises, was now caught in the grip of a powerful predator. Panic surged through him, a cold wave of fear that he had never experienced before. The python did not hesitate. As soon as it had a firm hold, it began to wrap its immense body around the horse's torso. Coil after coil, the snake looped itself around Pogo's chest and abdomen, its muscles tightening with relentless, suffocating pressure. Pogo let out a panicked whinny, a sound of pure terror that echoed across the plains. He bucked and reared, his powerful legs kicking out in a desperate attempt to break free from the deadly embrace. But the snake was like a living chain, its grip unyielding. With every breath Pogo took, the python seemed to tighten its hold, squeezing the air from his lungs. The horse's powerful heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat of terror. He could feel the immense strength of the snake, the crushing force that was slowly but surely overpowering him. His breath came in ragged, shallow gasps, as the coils constricted his chest, making it harder and harder to draw in air. He thrashed his head from side to side, his eyes wide with a primal fear. The world of gentle breezes and sweet grass had vanished, replaced by a nightmare of suffocating pressure and searing pain. He was trapped, and the life was slowly being squeezed out of him by an enemy he could not fight. The struggle was a brutal dance of survival. Pogo's instinct screamed at him to run, to escape, but the python's weight and unyielding grip held him fast. He stumbled and staggered, his strong legs weakening under the strain. The beautiful, serene creature who loved solitude was now locked in a terrifying, intimate battle with a monster from the shadows. His peaceful world had been invaded, and his life was hanging by a thread. The python's coils were a cage of muscle, a relentless and terrifying trap from which there seemed to be no escape. Hope was fading with every tightening loop. The sudden, violent attack sent a wave of sheer panic through the flock of geese. One moment they were peacefully foraging. The next, their world was upended by the horrifying sight of their gentle friend ensnared by a monstrous snake. The horse's terrified whinnies and the thrashing of his body filled the air. The geese scattered in a flurry of flapping wings and panicked honks, their own fear a palpable force. For a moment chaos reigned. They circled in the air above the terrible scene, their calls a mixture of alarm and distress. They were small birds, powerless against such a massive and deadly predator, but in their terror a powerful instinct took over, the instinct to protect their friend, their family. They could not fight the python themselves, but they knew they had to do something. They had to find help. With a collective, decisive cry, the flock wheeled in the sky and turned away from the scene of the struggle. They flew with a purpose they'd never known before, their wings beating the air with a desperate urgency. They were no longer just a flock of geese, they were messengers on a life-or-death mission. Their loud, frantic honks were not just sounds of fear anymore. They were a desperate alarm, a plea for help. They flew over the plains, their calls echoing across the vast open landscape. They flew towards the distant signs of human settlement, a place they usually avoided. But today their fear of humans was overshadowed by their desperate need to save Pogo. They flew faster and higher than they ever had before, their hearts pounding in their small chests. Every beat of their wings was a prayer for their friend who was fighting for his life back in the meadow. They were his only hope, a small band of feathered heroes on a desperate quest to alert someone, anyone, to the unfolding tragedy. Their flight was a testament to the incredible bond they shared with the gentle horse. Their friendship went deeper than just shared space. It was a true connection, a loyalty that now propelled them through the sky. The geese did not stop, they did not falter. They flew as one, a united force driven by love and desperation. Their cries were a beacon, a signal of distress that they hoped would be seen or heard by someone who could make a difference. The fate of Pogo rested on their wings, on their ability to bridge the gap between the wild plains and the world of humans. The frantic flight of the geese did not go unnoticed. A park ranger stationed at a lookout tower on the edge of the Canterbury Plains saw the unusual sight through his binoculars. He was accustomed to the normal patterns of wildlife, and this was far from normal. The geese were flying with a desperate speed and purpose, and their calls were sharp with alarm. They were heading directly toward the ranger station, a clear and urgent signal that something was terribly wrong. His curiosity turned to concern as he watched the flock get closer, their distress becoming more and more apparent. He knew he had to investigate. When the geese arrived near the station, they did not land peacefully. They circled overhead, honking incessantly, their calls echoing with an unmistakable urgency. The ranger, an experienced man who understood the language of the wild better than most, recognized this as a dire alarm. He immediately radioed his dispatch, reporting the strange behavior of the flock. "This is Ranger Station 3, he said, his voice calm but firm. "I have a flock of geese here in a state of extreme agitation. They appear to be trying to lead me somewhere. Something is wrong out on the plains." The dispatcher's voice crackled back over the radio, professional and efficient. "Copy that, Ranger Station 3. Can you follow them?" The dispatcher knew to trust the instincts of seasoned rangers. An emergency alert was immediately sent out to the specialized animal rescue team, a group of brave men and women trained for exactly these kinds of situations. The message was clear and concise. A potential wildlife emergency on the Canterbury Plains, location guided by a distressed flock of geese. The dispatcher noted the location, marking it on a digital map and preparing to coordinate the response. The call to action had been made. Within minutes, the system was fully engaged. The rescue team, known as Rescue 1, was scrambled. Sirens began to wail in the distance as the team members rushed to their vehicle, their minds already focused on the unknown danger that awaited them. The initial report was unusual, but every member of the team knew that in the wild, the strangest calls could often be the most serious. They were ready for anything. The geese had successfully delivered their message, setting in motion a chain of events that now represented Pogo's only chance of survival. Help was finally on the way. The Rescue 1 team travelled in a rugged, all-terrain vehicle, its tyres churning up dust as it sped across the open plains. The journey was tense. The team leader, a calm and experienced woman named Sarah, drove with focused determination. Beside her, a veterinarian named Ben checked his medical kit, ensuring he had everything he might need from sedatives to heart monitors. In the back, two more rescuers, Mark and Chloe, prepared ropes and special tools designed for handling large animals and reptiles. They had been told the travel time was approximately 7 minutes, and every second felt critical. They didn't know what to expect, only that an animal was in grave danger. As they followed the direction from the ranger who was now tracking the geese from his tower, the team members felt a mix of emotions. There was the adrenaline rush that came with any emergency call, a heightened sense of awareness and purpose. But there was also a deep sense of empathy and concern. These were people who had dedicated their lives to saving animals, and the thought of any creature suffering weighed heavily on them. They spoke in low, clipped tones, confirming their plan of action. They would need to be fast, coordinated, and incredibly careful, both for the animals' safety and their own. Finally, they saw it. In a meadow ahead, a dark, struggling shape. As they drew closer, the horrifying scene came into sharp focus. It was a horse, a beautiful chestnut, and it was completely entangled in the coils of a massive python. The horse was still moving, but its struggles were growing weaker. The team's professionalism kicked in, masking the shock and horror they all felt. Sarah brought the vehicle to a stop a safe distance away, and the team disembarked, moving quickly and quietly so as not to startle the python further. The sight was worse than they could have imagined. The snake was enormous, and the horse was clearly in extreme distress. "Okay, team, let's move," Sarah commanded, her voice steady. "Ben, you get ready to assess the horse the second we create an opening. Mark, Chloe, we need to get the head. I'll take the lead." The team moved with practiced efficiency, each member knowing their role. They were a well-oiled machine, driven by a shared mission to save this creature's life. The geese, who had been circling anxiously overhead, saw the rescuers arrive and let out a series of hopeful honks. Their desperate flight had worked. The battle for Pogo's life was about to begin, and he now had powerful allies on his side. The first priority for the rescue team was to calm the terrified horse. Pogo was in a state of extreme panic, his body trembling and his breathing shallow. The veterinarian, Ben, approached slowly, speaking in a low, soothing voice. "Easy there, boy. Easy now. We're here to help you," he murmured, his tone gentle and reassuring. He managed to get close enough to place a hand on Pogo's neck, away from the python's deadly coils. He could feel the horse's heart pounding wildly. "Heart rate is high, but he's a fighter," Ben called out to the team, his touch already having a slightly calming effect on the distressed animal. While Ben worked to soothe Pogo, the rest of the team focused on the python. Dealing with a giant constrictor required immense courage and precise teamwork. Sarah, Mark, and Chloe approached the snake from different angles. Their primary goal was to gain control of the python's head to prevent it from biting and to disrupt its ability to constrict further. With practiced coordination, Mark used a special hook to gently lift the snake's head, while Chloe swiftly and firmly grasped it from behind, securing its powerful jaws. It was a dangerous maneuver, but essential for the rescue to proceed safely. The snake thrashed, but Chloe's grip was firm. With their head secured, the team began the difficult and exhausting work of unwrapping the snake's massive coils from Pogo's body. The python's muscles were incredibly powerful, and it did not release its grip easily. Working together, Sarah and Mark started from the tail, pulling and unwinding the thick, muscular body, loop by loop. It was a slow and strenuous process. They had to be careful not to harm the snake, while also working quickly to relieve the pressure on the horse's chest. Pogo stood, trembling, seeming to understand that these humans were trying to help him, his earlier struggles subsiding into exhausted shivers. Finally, after several long, tense minutes, the last coil was pulled free. The immense weight and pressure were gone. Pogo stumbled, his legs weak, but he remained standing, supported by Ben. The team carefully moved the large python away, preparing it for safe relocation far from the plains where it could not harm other animals. As the snake was carried away, a collective sigh of relief went through the team. They had done it. They had faced a terrifying and powerful predator, and through their courage, teamwork, and compassion, had won the battle for a gentle horse's life. Pogo was free. With the python safely contained, the team's full attention turned to Pogo. He was exhausted, trembling, and covered in scrapes, but he was alive. Ben immediately began a more thorough examination. "His breathing is stabilizing," he announced, his voice filled with relief. He checked the horse's heart rate again. "It's coming down. Respiration is 16. Heart rate is 40. He's going to be okay." He cleaned Pogo's minor wounds and administered a mild anti-inflammatory to help with the pain and swelling from the snake's constriction. The team members watched, their faces reflecting a deep sense of satisfaction and joy. This was why they did what they did. As Pogo began to recover his strength, a familiar sound filled the air. It was the sound of honking, but this time it was not frantic or panicked. It was a soft, joyful sound. The flock of geese, who had been watching the entire rescue from a safe distance, slowly descended from the sky. They landed gently on the grass and waddled cautiously towards their friend. They approached him slowly, their heads cocked as if asking if he was all right. It was a tender and deeply moving moment. The brave messengers had returned to the friend they had worked so hard to save. Pogo, seeing his feathered family, let out a low, soft nicker. It was a sound of recognition and gratitude. He lowered his head, and one of the lead geese stepped forward and gently nudged his nose with its beak. The rest of the flock gathered around his legs, their soft chattering a comforting presence that seemed to wash away the last of his fear. The rescue team watched in silence, their hearts full. They had not just saved a horse, they had preserved a beautiful and unique friendship. The sight of the gentle giant and his small, devoted companions reunited was the greatest reward they could have asked for. As the sun began to set, casting a warm golden glow over the Canterbury Plains, peace was restored. Pogo stood tall once more, surrounded by his loyal friends. He was safe, and his quiet kingdom was whole again. The events of the day had been terrifying, but they had also revealed the incredible power of bravery, teamwork, and the unbreakable bond of friendship. The gentle horse and his flock of geese had faced the darkness together and emerged into the light, their extraordinary connection stronger than ever before. It was a new dawn of hope on the plains, a testament to the fact that even the quietest souls can inspire the greatest acts of courage.